Mr Speaker.
Lawrence Hill.
Mr Speaker, it gives me pleasure to speak in this general debate, and as members of the other side asked me to say a word, I'm going to. And I'm actually going to talk about chartered schools, Mr Speaker. And that's because what I witnessed today in question time was the biggest set of sort of avoiding the issue that I've seen so far in this House. From the Prime Minister down, actually. Ministers, the Prime Minister, the Minister of Education, the Leader of the House. What I saw was actually a contentious issue that nobody will actually front up on. And I want to talk about charter schools a bit, and I acknowledge the Honourable Meka Whaitiri, who's in the House with us today, because we actually have a charter school, a Te Kura o Mangateretiri. And before the election last year, the Honourable Anne Tolley and myself visited that school. Now, sure, it doesn't have all the registered teachers. It may not meet all the criteria of mainstream education. But we saw about 30 young people that had largely been rejected by every other schooling system in the North Island. From Tauranga, from Auckland, from Whakatū, which is our own local community. That school has set up, it feeds the kids in the morning, it teaches them in a different way, and actually, for the first time, they were telling us they had a group of people that believed in them, were confident in them, and could make a difference. Now, I accept that the government may have an ideological difference in approach, but what I heard today was a government that will not front up to the decisions it's about to make. And actually what that's about is fronting up. And I challenge the Prime Minister and the Minister of Education and some of the Māori MPs who happen to be ministers to actually front up in those schools, look at those kids in the eye and say, we are about to change things. And yes, we might be about to change things, but here's another way. You see, today in the House, Mr Speaker, the Prime Minister would not give the Leader of the Opposition a guarantee that those schools would remain open. And I actually think, yes, technically she may not be able to, but actually what she could do is go into those schools and talk out the transition plan, because that's what's missing at the moment. And for the life of me, I cannot understand why a leader, and I've been a leader in various roles in myself, sometimes you've actually got to front up to the people you're talking about and talk to them about the issue. You see, this Prime Minister, she says we care. She talked about Waitangi, about walking the walk. Here is an opportunity for this Prime Minister to front up in a contentious area of change and make a difference, to reassure these young people, these 1,500 young people who are in a good set of education that they're happy with by choice, who are now being told their school closes and there's no guarantee of the future. And the Honourable Chris Hipkins that sits in front of us, he too claims that he can't be involved because it's subject to ministerial processes and government technical processes. Actually, have a heart. These kids and these schools don't know where they stand from the time this policy's been announced to now. And I watch members on the other side shaking their head. Yes, they can go and talk as a local member of parliament, but they're covered by collective responsibility. I'm sure there are conversations going on. This is actually an easy thing to solve, a really easy thing to solve. Front up to these schools, give them a guarantee that they'll remain open even under the new arrangements, and talk with them about how that's going to happen. At the moment, that hasn't occurred. And I worry, in this early stage of this government, that when the tough things happen, nobody's prepared to front up and do the tough things. And I actually challenge the Prime Minister and I challenge the various ministers here to actually have some courage and some gumption to look these people in the eye, just like the Honourable Bill English did the day before he announced his resignation, because he gets this. He understands the difference between talk and the walk. And here we have 1,500 young people of New Zealand, probably our most disadvantaged or challenged, have a system. It's working. It may not tick all the boxes in an educational critique, but it's working. We're going to shut them down. That's what the law says, change says, and yet nobody to this day has properly fronted up to those young people. Thank you, Mr Speaker.
The Honourable Chris